Yes, yes, yes. And here we are, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is the first Sactown Sports Kings recap show with yours truly, Nick Cattles. Thanks for everybody jumping in on this. And I know it's a pretty late Friday night and it was a blowout. So I don't know how busy we're going to be tonight, but I am happy that you are all here with me tonight to talk about a game that was, quite frankly, a curb stomping. I mean, if you're a Kings fan, this is exactly what you wanted to see. You wanted to see the Kings come out and do what they did tonight against the Lakers team that did not have Anthony Davis, lost Russell Westbrook in the first quarter due to a hamstring pull. And, we go back to what happened on Wednesday night when you're watching this team play against, the opposition that's not playing anybody in the top 8 or 9 in their rotation. The Suns came out and played nobody from their team. And you saw the Kings just lack effort and intensity and urgency to start that game off on Wednesday night. Well, we saw a different Kings team tonight. They were ready, they were prepared, and they played with that urgency, intensity, and especially energy. I thought they played with some great energy tonight, and that was crucial. It really was. I know this is a preseason game, but when you saw what you saw on Wednesday night, you had to wonder what kind of life they would have tonight in the final preseason game. They answered all of those questions. We'll get into what happened during this game, what jumped out at me, but let's start with the starting five. No Keegan Murray tonight, non-COVID illness. He was out of the game. No Kevin Huerter due to that ankle soreness. So you had two guys who were going to be in your top 6, 7 rotation out of this game tonight. You possibly had 2 of your 5 starters out of the game tonight. So what did Mike Brown do? Well, Mike Brown started Fox, Monk, Okpala, HB, and Domas. So when you look at that starting 5, the first thing it tells me is that, Okpala, he slides in to the 3 position where he's pretty much been alongside with HB and Domas. They then move Monk into the starting lineup. Now, I think that's because Mike Brown did not want to move away from Terence Davis coming off of the bench. I think this was the way where, if you're Mike Brown, you've been putting Davis into the game, coming off the bench, one of the first 2 guys off the bench on a nightly basis in this preseason. So you don't want to mess up that rotation. So what you do is you take Monk and you put him into the starting 5 at the 2 guard position. I think that tells us a couple of things. I think that tells us that Davis coming off of the bench, it might just be ahead of Malik Monk, and we'll get into that a little bit more later on. But you also see Okpala as, once again, the go-to guy with Keegan out of the lineup. I have to wonder, we've been talking about this on Cattles and Rami in the afternoon on Sactown Sports. I have to wonder if Keegan Murray would have started on Wednesday night. And I have to wonder if Keegan Murray would have started tonight. So this non-COVID illness came at the worst possible time for Keegan Murray, because I don't think you'll see Keegan start a game anytime soon early on in this season. I mean, he did not start the first 2 preseason games. He's missed the last 2 preseason games because of that illness. It's tough for me to believe that Keegan is going to leapfrog a couple of guys and all of a sudden be starting in the starting 5 come Wednesday night against the Trailblazers. So that's one of the things that jumps out at me about Keegan. And you wonder if Coach Brown, kind of regrets not starting Keegan in one of those first 2 preseason games, because if he did, then it'd be less of a question. YouTube.com/Sactown Sports 1140. Again, thanks for the people jumping on this. If you want to leave a comment, please do. I see Earl's comment right now. We can go back and forth. Observations that you guys saw. Obviously, it was a rather easy night. I couldn't believe how many whistles were being blown in a 40-point game in the fourth quarter of a preseason freaking game with those refs. But I digress. So any comments, feel free to leave them. I also thought it was interesting, before the game started, Coach Brown met with the media, and Coach Brown again talked about starting Okpala. And again, Coach Brown mentioned that, Keegan might not start. He did say that Keegan was going to get a bunch of minutes, whether he starts or comes off the bench. But Mike Brown has been very, very consistent in his messaging throughout this preseason. He is not going to just give a starting job to Keegan Murray. And he is, I think, very serious starting KZ Okpala, at least to begin this season. And I would not be surprised come Wednesday night if you do see, Fox, Huerter, Okpala, HB, and Domas. I think he's been very consistent with that. And, whether I agree with it or not, I think it's pretty difficult, again, to now fight for Keegan Murray to be in that starting lineup, in that starting 5, when he hasn't been in the starting five the entire preseason. So I think it gets easier for the Kings and for Coach Brown to keep Okpala in that starting five for now and really press and push Keegan to see if he can be a part of that starting five by the end of the first month, in the middle of the second month. So I would be surprised if Okpala is not in the starting five on Wednesday night. I think we should all be prepared for that. Let's just talk about this game. In the first quarter, I'm not going to spend any time on the second half. Okay, come on. It was blowout city, curb stomp city. I'm not going to sit here and waste any of your time breaking down the fourth quarter, with all due respect to Sam Merrill and company. When you look at the first quarter, the guy who jumped out the most to me was Domas, man. I thought Domas was terrific in the first quarter of this game. I thought he was aggressive. I thought he had a lot of touches, especially in the paint. I loved seeing him work with his back to the basket. And an aggressive Domas means that this offense is going to be better. And you can watch him play the two-man game, whether it's with Fox or Monk or really anybody, because he's that good of a passer. You watch him play the two-man game. You watch him play the three-man game. At times, there was that possession. I think it was in the second half where it was between Monk, and I think it was Davis. It might not have been Davis. No, it was Okpala. So you had Domas, Monk, and Okpala in the action. Monk went off of the screen, and then Domas gets the basketball after he sets the screen for Monk, and he just kind of turns around and shovels it to Okpala for a three on the wing. I just thought Domas played a very good game tonight. I thought he had great vision as usual. He was crashing the glass. He was actually trying to block some shots at the rim. I thought Domas was terrific in that first quarter, and I thought he set the tone to go along with De'Aaron Fox, because I thought Fox was really good tonight too. And that goes back to what I was saying. When you watch the game on Wednesday night, you were sitting there saying to yourself, well, where's the energy? Where's the life? And it all starts with Domas and De'Aaron Fox. And I thought both of those guys came out with the right amount of energy, and they set the tone for the team, and everybody followed in their footsteps, and you could see that. So Domas was terrific. I thought they played excellent off of Sabonis. You work the action off of him. You let him move the basketball. I thought the guys out there, the rest of the four that started this game tonight, I thought they played really well off of Sabonis, especially in that first quarter. Somebody I want to, pay attention to is Terence Davis, because, we've been having this conversation about Davis on the afternoon show, Cattles and Rami, for the last, week or two. I think it's time. I think it's time that we all realize, recognize, and acknowledge that Terence Davis is going to get minutes on this team. I can't tell you he's going to get minutes, through all 82 games. And I see Carmichael Dave saying the preseason could not have gone any better. If they win every regular season game, I'm confident they'll go 82-0. I'm confident too, Dave, as well. But when you look at Terence Davis, this is not, a flash in the pan kind of thing. Just like Coach Brown has been very consistent talking about, Okpala maybe starting and Keegan maybe not starting to begin this season, just as much as Mike Brown has been consistent about that, Coach Brown has also been very, very consistent about bringing Terence Davis off the bench as like the first guy. Davis, the last three preseason games, he's come out and he has, come off the bench instead of Davion Mitchell. He's come off the bench before Malik Monk. And I do think that means something. Coach Brown has seen something from Terence Davis, and TD has actually backed that up with his play on the floor. He's been shooting well. He's been trying defensively. And I think it's telling that Coach Brown has used, a three-man kind of rotation at times in that backcourt. We've seen Davion, TD, and Malik Monk on the floor all at the same time. And so I think that what we're going to see is we're going to see Terence Davis coming off of that bench really early. And I would not be surprised if TD is actually the first guy off the bench to start this season. Davion looks like he's kind of slid behind TD, and it looks like Malik, might have slid behind TD as far as who's the first guy off the bench. I thought it was going to be Monk immediately, that sixth man who can bring that microwavable offense. But maybe not. Maybe it's TD. So, I think Terence Davis is going to get legitimate minutes for this team this year, at least to start. And you look at this 8 to 9 man rotation, he is firmly in the mix. I think Brown is firmly committed to Terence Davis. I absolutely believe that. Sam K says the Kings wanted to beat the Lakers nice and slow for the fans tonight. It was certainly a beating. There's no doubt. AA jumps in with the beat LA and the handshake. Zombie Head Soldiers 82-0. Absolutely. You know, you look at this team, they're playing good basketball. It's the preseason. I know we're not going to go, too haywire here, but I would rather see, these guys play as well as they've been playing than playing like crap, because it. Let's be transparent about this. I've been a radio guy for a while, right? You know what radio guys would do if the Kings were playing like crap, if they were defending like crap, if they were missing shots, if Fox and Sabonis didn't show any life, if Mike Brown looked clueless on the sidelines, you know what we would be doing? We would sit there and we would hammer this team. We'd say, yeah, it's the preseason, but you've got to play better than that, and they don't look like they have any life. So now when you look at this, you've got to give them credit for playing as well as they have in the preseason. It doesn't mean much of anything as soon as they start things off on Wednesday night, but you would rather see them play well than play like crap. So there you have it. The other thing I've noticed, and I don't know how many of you guys have noticed, when you look at Fox and Davion, they look very comfortable from three-point land. And that's awesome to see. I mentioned this the first show after the first preseason game. If you've watched, and I know many of you have watched the preseason, you see Davion's three. He has a lot more arc underneath his shot now. And it looks much better to me from three-point land. And we started to see that late in the season from the free throw line. I think he's built that out now. And you can see him, making threes. He shot very well. I don't have the percentages off the top of my head, but Davion had to shoot better than 40% from three in this preseason. And I think that means something because, again, we go back to late last year, and what we had said was one of the aspects of Davion's game that had to get better was the catch and shoot and was to make shots from distance. Because if you're playing off of Sabonis, if you're playing off of Fox, you need to make those threes. And so when you watch Davion look very comfortable from three, that's going to impact this offense. And it's also going to impact the offense because Malik Monk is a good playmaker out of the pick and roll. And you've seen Monk with the basketball a decent amount here in his hands coming off of the bench. And so I think Davion might play a little bit more off the ball than we might have anticipated before the preseason began. So I think you'll see Monk, play make out of that pick and roll. And if Davion continues to make these shots and make these threes on the catch and shoot, that's going to impact this offense. Now we get to Fox. Fox has looked very comfortable from three in this preseason. And remember, Fox shot well post-Halliburton trade, right? Fox's percentages went up. He was a better three-point shooter when Sabonis came on to the team after that Hallie trade. So if you've got Fox and Davion shooting, let's say they shoot 36, 37%. Folks, we know this team is going to be better shooting, okay? You've got Monk, who's a shooter. You've got Herter, who's a shooter. You've got Keegan, who is a shooter. TD can shoot. We see all of these guys that can shoot the basketball. If you tell me that Davion and De'Aaron can hit 36, 37% of their threes this year, you're talking about a team that literally goes 6 or 7 guys deep that can shoot 36% or better from three, which is unfreaking believable. And now you talk about this offense with Sabonis 1 in, 4 out. You surround Sabonis with guys that can shoot the ball. And if Davion and Fox are also in that company, it's going to be a very difficult team to defend. And I know this is the preseason, but I've been saying this, and Rami's been saying it. I'm sure Dave and Jason have talked about it enough in the morning as well. But this offense is high octane. And, we can question the defense and whether or not that defense is going to stay consistent. But when you watch this offense, you see the ball moving, you see the man movement, you see the shooting, you see playing off of Sabonis. And I think we're going to continue to see that. I said when Jordi Fernandez was hired as a top assistant for Coach Brown, you look over, his resume, and what sticks out to you is that he coached in Denver. And you immediately think about Jokic being that big man passing the basketball and what Denver does offensively off of Jokic. And it's a perfect fit for Sabonis to be slotted in that spot as Jokic and work off of him. And then you think about Coach Brown being at Golden State and what Golden State does with Draymond Green. And Draymond Green, the Warriors play off of Green when he's not Superman punching people in the face. They play off of Green offensively. And I thought about, well, that's what they're going to do with Sabonis and run some of these splits. And that's what you've seen. You've seen 4 guys working off of Sabonis as this preseason has gone along, and you've seen the shooters looking very, very comfortable. Sam K says, as a Kings fan, we've seen offense and offense and offense for years. What a breath of fresh air for me. It just doesn't look like an okay or competent defense. It looks like a good defense. Guys look connected. Now, I won't tell you every single possession has been awesome defensively because I'd be lying to your face. But they do look better defensively, and they look competent, and they look like they are connected and communicating, and they've got busy hands with lots of deflections. I think, Fox has played pretty consistent defense. He's looked pretty engaged on the defensive end, and all of you know better than I know. I've been here for 10 months, but when you watch Fox night in and night out, and I know they talked about this the other night, Mark and Katie last Sunday night in that preseason game, the idea of when Fox plays against better guys, when higher name value, like the Damian Lillards, Fox has stepped up and played defensively, but when he plays against some of these mediocre point guards or the guys that don't have big names, well, then Fox kind of slides back defensively and doesn't give you that engagement, every single possession or most possessions. I've seen De'Aaron Fox look more engaged on the defensive end in this preseason, and I think that has to be a direct correlation to Coach Brown. And I think, Coach Brown has it in between the ears of these guys that you have to play defense and at least be competitive on that end. And I think, to go off of Sam K's point about this defense, they do have the pieces to play some good defense. Fox has always had the tools. It's always been whether or not he wants to do it. He has the tools. Herter is a solid defender. He's not a great defender. He is a solid, more than adequate NBA defender, probably above average. And then you look at Keegan. Keegan is a good defender. HB is a good defender. So it's not like this team has a bunch of ham and acres on that end of the court. They've got guys who can defend, and I believe they're going to defend pretty well. The one question I would have, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, and again, you can chat with us here, youtube.com/Sactown Sports 1140. We got the Sactown Sports Kings recap happening right now. Going to happen after every single Kings game this regular season. Carmichael Dave will be with you on Wednesday night after the season opener at Golden One against the Trailblazers. Should be a great night. The one thing I am concerned about is the size of this team and what is going to happen, right? Like, what is going to happen if teams start to consistently get into the paint? They don't have rim protection. Domas is not a great rim protector. He's not going to sit there and be a stopper in the paint. So that puts all of the pressure on the perimeter. That puts all of the pressure on the other 4 guys to make sure that they don't crack, because this is not a very big team down in the paint. You've got Domas and you've got Holmes. Beyond that, everybody is like 6'9" or shorter. So I do wonder about the size. I would like to see another 6'9", 6'10" guy in the mix who could really defend. But I think it's been pretty competent on the defensive end, at least from what I've seen. One other thing, how did you guys feel about Coach Brown leaving the starters in for as long as he did? That was one question that I had. I tweeted this out at Nick C Radio, by the way. It's at Nick C Radio on Twitter. I tweeted out, like, I wasn't comfortable watching Coach Brown have his starters out there midway, late in the third quarter of a 40-point game, last preseason game that they're going to play. The last thing I wanted to see was Sabonis tweak an ankle or something ridiculous happen when it's like a 45-point game. I would have liked to see the guys get out a little bit earlier than they did. But that's one of the only things I could complain about watching this game tonight was, I would have taken the guys out a little bit earlier than Coach Brown did. The other thing I would also say is free throw shots. The free throw making was awful in the first half. It's been bad all preseason long. And if you want to win close games, well, you've got to make those free throws. So, I thought overall this game was a great way to kind of walk into the regular season on Wednesday night. I want to ask you guys what your rotations are. What is your starting five? I don't think Keegan will be in the starting five to start the season. He missed the last 2 preseason games. He didn't start the first 2 preseason games. I'd be surprised if Keegan is starting come Wednesday night. I think you'll see Fox. I think you'll see Herter. I think Okpala will start at 3. I think HB will be the 4 and Domas will be the 5. And then I would not be surprised that the first 2 guys off the bench are actually Terence Davis and, of course, Keegan Murray. I mean, I think I'd obviously like to see Keegan come off the bench first. I'd like to see him starting eventually. But I think you'll see Keegan and Davis, come off the bench first and foremost to start the first few games as, the first 2 or 3 subs coming into the game. Run DMG, my guy, during the afternoon show says Nick at night, little Nickelodeon shout out. Sam K comes back and says he's glad that they didn't have a Westbrook situation on the hands to tell the truth. Yeah, Westbrook pulled a hammy. Was that a real hammy pull? What do we think? I'm going to say it was a real hammy pull, but it was interesting. It's his first game off the bench as a Laker, and within 2 minutes, the dude's like, my hammy, and runs right to the tunnel. Again, I think it was legit, but the timing was pretty interesting to see it nonetheless. There's no doubt about it. Double A in the chat says Hallie can be better than Fox. He ain't better than Bonus. Look, Halliburton is really good. We all know that. I don't want to relive that trade too much more. I mean, we talked a lot about it when it happened on my show, and Dave and Jason talked about it a bunch. You were not going to trade De'Aaron Fox for Domantas Sabonis. Indiana did not want Fox. It was the contract. It was some other things. If you were bringing in Domas, you were bringing in Domas by using Halliburton. That was the trade. And the 3-guard thing was not working out. I think everybody knew that. I think Monty knew it, and they had to get rid of one of the 3 guys. And Hallie had the most value, so they turned him into Domas, and 2-time All-Star in his mid-20s. Not the worst thing in the world. I would say that. Mike Barnbaum says the weakness that I see is the free throw shooting. As far as starting, I would like to see Fox, Monk, Sabonis, Barnes, and Mitchell, especially for raising the bar on the defensive end of each game. I don't think you'll see Mitchell, Fox, and Monk starting again because of the size and because, I think when you look at those 3 guards, it would be very similar to what you try to do with Hallie, Fox, and Mitchell and see if they could work together, and they didn't. So I think, Mitchell's safe coming off the bench. Monk, I think, is going to come off the bench. I like Monk coming off the bench because, again, he's that quick offense. He's the guy that can make some shots. I think eventually Keegan will be starting, and for the people saying it doesn't matter who starts a game, look, how about it's about who finishes. How about starting and finishing? How about having Keegan start and finish the game? There's an idea. You're the 4th pick overall, actually starting and ending. I would be a big fan of that idea eventually happening this season. So, again, thanks to everybody out there. We'll keep this thing going for at least another few minutes. If you guys have questions, if you have thoughts about the game, I know it's a Friday night, so I don't want to keep you too long, but as long as you enjoy the conversation, we can keep it going. Again, if you look at how this team is currently constituted, I still feel the way I felt before we got into the preseason. And as we look forward to the regular season, I still feel like this team is going to be in the mix for the play-in. I do not think the Kings are going to be able to be a top 6 seed. I hope they will be a top 6 seed. We all want them to be a top 6 seed. But, when you look at the Western Conference, it is just so ridiculously deep. And, I just think it's going to be very, very tough to deal with the depth of this conference and the talent of this conference. There's no doubt that this Kings team is better than it was last year. And there's no doubt that this Kings team is deeper than it was this year, than last year. And there's no doubt that this team is more deep and talented and better shooting than it was. No doubt about it. Cole G says that Utah and Dallas are going to take a dump. Dallas is tough because, they got Luka, man. I'm not going to doubt Luka. Utah, yeah, they're awful. I mean, Danny Ainge came out and said, this is it. It's over. We're not going to be, we're not going to be that good. Everybody knows that. I think Dallas will likely be better than the Kings this year. I would lean Dallas over Sacramento. Utah is going to be just a bleep show. Utah's a bleep show. I think when you look at it, I think what we're looking at is, the Lakers. You've got the Lakers, you've got the Trailblazers. Those are the two teams that I think that the Kings are going to be battling for that 7th, 8th spot, right? Somewhere in that area. If you're talking about the top 5 or 6 seeds, I mean, you've got all the teams that we know about, right? And the Lakers will be part of that. So Lakers and Portland going to be battling out. I think when you look at New Orleans, I think the Pelicans are going to be in that kind of area too of the play-in. Memphis is likely going to be very good. Denver should be very good. The Clippers being healthy, if they can stay healthy, should be very good. The Warriors, obviously defending champions, are going to be really, really good. You've got the 5 or 6 teams at the top, and so I think once you have that kind of established, Dallas is also in the mix from anywhere from 4 to 7. And LA is in that mix from anywhere from I think 6 to 9 or 6 to 10. If they have an injury, though, that Lakers team, you saw them tonight, guys. That Lakers team is awful if anything happens. If Anthony Davis goes down with an ouch my pinky for 3 weeks, they're going to stink out loud. If LeBron James pulls his hamstring, they're going to stink out loud. I don't know how long it's going to take for the Westbrook trade to happen, but I have to imagine Westbrook is not going to be a Laker by the end of this season. I would be surprised if he is still a Laker by the trading deadline. And I think that, with the situation, all the conversations with Indiana, I just have to believe that eventually Westbrook will be a Pacer and you'll see Buddy Hield and Miles Turner go back to LA. LA is going to have to realize that they're going to give up the 27 and 29 first round picks. That's what they got to do. I don't know how much longer you can keep the Russell Westbrook charade going. You've got to sit down and say to yourself, enough is enough. We got to deal the 27 first round pick and the 29 first round pick, because this is just not going to work out. Run DMG asked me if I'm going to opening night. As Sactown says, I was close. I was a close contact. To a COVID case in the last couple of days, which is why I've been doing the show from home. So far, I'm negative. I've tested twice. I tested yesterday morning. I tested this morning. Fingers crossed that I continue to test negative. But I am not going to be able to be at opening night. Right now, the plan, I believe, is going to have Rami's going to be out there at Golden One to do the afternoon show. I'll be back home doing the show with him. But I will make it out to plenty of Kings games this year. Trust me when I tell you, I'm excited to watch this team in person. I think this is going to be a fun team to watch, exciting team to watch. Offensively, they're going to be good. They're going to make shots. It's just all about that defense and whether or not they're going to be able to keep that up. So, it is what it is, as they say. Defensively, we'll see if they can carry some of this as they get into the regular season. Jeremy Carr, I want to see them play every game with a chip on their shoulder. Be upset that the best players sit when they play you, make them pay for it. Every single game, give this effort. Let's go. Jeremy, I agree with you, man. It wasn't there on Wednesday night, right? They came out Wednesday night. The Suns weren't playing anybody, and that game had all the life of a funeral. It was absolutely brutal to watch the beginning of that game. The Kings didn't care. The Suns didn't care much. They literally played a guy who they brought in for one day and then they cut him today. That game was pretty tough to watch. And I said this on the show yesterday. How much do you put into the preseason? Because you've got the preseason and guys are not going to be there all fired up all the time, especially the veterans. So you got to sit back and say it was the preseason on Wednesday night. But then you also, like Jeremy said, you think about the history of this team, and they have had a terrible habit of playing down to the competition, not playing as well or as hard against teams when they're not playing their guys. Somebody's out with load management and all that kind of stuff. You've got to get away from that mentality. You've got to start building winning habits. And I thought at the end of the first half in the game on Wednesday night, they finally started to kick it into gear. They went on that 13-2 run. They came out in the third quarter. They started the second half with much better energy. And I thought they played much better in the second half. And then I think that translated to tonight. I thought you saw the energy and the urgency from this team when you saw them come out tonight and play. No Anthony Davis, right? No Anthony Davis. Westbrook is coming off the bench. If they came out like they came out on Wednesday night, you would have seen a team sapped with like zero energy, not taking it serious, and get run off the floor the first 6 to 8 minutes. It was the complete opposite. And as a matter of fact, like when you're watching that game tonight, if it wasn't for LeBron hit two ridiculous like fade away, fall away jump shots. Really good defense, by the way, by the Kings on those possessions. But he hits two ridiculous fall away jumpers. If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for those two shots by LeBron, this team would have given up 19 points in the first quarter. So that is a marked difference between what happened tonight and what happened on Wednesday night. And don't tell me it was the preseason, and don't tell me there was no Anthony Davis, because again, the Phoenix Suns played a bunch of ham and eggers in that game on Wednesday night. So I think the message was delivered by Coach Brown, and I think the guys picked up that message. And I think it's absolutely fantastic to see that. Run DMG talks about this Kings depth. There's no doubt about it, man. This team is deep, and I've been saying this since they've added the guys, since they added Herter, since they added Monk, they added Keegan through the draft. This team is as deep and as talented as it has been in quite a long time. And, it's no guarantee that they're going to win, 45 games or whatever, but this is going to be a deep team. They've got legitimate NBA players, guys and gals, that can go, 9, 10, 11 deep. They really do. They've got legitimate NBA talent that goes 10 deep. And the perfect example of that, look, I appreciate Chimezie Metu, great story. He's in the NBA. He started some games last year. He played a pretty big role on this team, right, last season. Look at what's going on this year. Like Chimezie didn't even get into the game tonight until like the fourth quarter when it was a 50-point game. Like that tells you the difference of depth. Chimezie Metu started for this team at times last year. Now he's like the 13th dude on this team. Like that tells you all about the depth. So I thought, the offseason, I thought Monty did a really good job. Team's deep. Team is very offensively impactful when they play the right way. And I think you'll see that, play out. Sactown's asked me who's going to get cut. I think Manecki playing tonight meant something. Manecki getting those minutes early, it tells me that Manecki probably is safe. Now, I could end up being wrong, and you guys will kill me on Twitter at Nick C Radio, but I think that Manecki is safe, him playing tonight and getting some minutes, and his defense against LeBron. Don't overlook that. We know Coach Brown likes defense. Do not overlook Manecki's defense against LeBron tonight. Yes, it was the fourth preseason game. It doesn't matter, as The Rock would say. When you looked at the defense by Manecki tonight, he missed a couple of bunnies. He missed some cupcakes. That's fine. But when you looked at that defense tonight on LeBron James, I think Manecki, if he was on the borderline of making this team, I think he made the team tonight with those minutes he played and the defense that he played. I think it comes down to Merrill and Dellavedova. I think one of those two guys, Dellavedova, Merrill, one of those two guys I think are going to get cut. I would lean towards Merrill because, again, I think the Kings have plenty of shooting. I like the idea of holding on to that third veteran point guard, but you could push back on that. I've seen people, on Twitter, I've seen Gillage bring this up and other people have talked about it. I've talked about this idea that, you might not need Dellavedova because of Malik Monk's playmaking ability off of the pick and roll. And if they're going to have Malik, play with the ball in his hands coming off the bench, you might not need Dellavedova. But I would lean towards Merrill being the guy that gets cut. That's what I would imagine happening, that Merrill is off this team. Manecki makes it. Dellavedova makes it. Ellis and Queta are your two-way. They go to Stockton. I think that's what you will see. And the rotation, I think you've got Fox. You've got, I think, Davion. Davis is in the mix. Whether he's going to play the 2, the 3, who knows what they're going to happen, what they're going to do with that rotation, because Coach Brown's been all over the place with it. But I think, when you look at that guard rotation, you got 5 guys that you're going to depend on. So when you look at the wing position, that's where it gets kind of fun for me. How long will it take for Keegan to slide into the starting lineup? Will Coach Brown keep Akpala out there and just say enough is enough? No, we like the defense, and that's what we want to do. RH just got home, got 5th row behind the basket. You could really tell the big 3 plus TD and Davion are really ready to go. I agree. I wanted Coach Brown to sit the starters earlier than he did. I thought it was a little crazy that he left the guys out as long as he did. But what are you going to do? That's Coach Brown's decision. Cole G says the Kings will be able to pick up some cheap wins the second half of the season. There are going to be several teams in the West going into the tank for Wembanyama. And look, if you listen to the afternoon show, that Victor Wembanyama is like one of my favorites. I need a drink of water. I've been talking for about 36 straight minutes. Thanks for that quick timeout. Wembanyama is a beast. And I think, I think there are going to be teams. It's going to be interesting to see how many teams are on the trading deadline bail and start shipping parts away to try to get into the Wembanyama sweepstakes, because I absolutely believe teams are going to tank for that guy. That guy is, you talk special, you talk about transcendent, you talk about generational talent. Victor Wembanyama is all of those things. So I think you will see a number of teams tank if they're kind of floating around that play-in. And, I think you should be ready for that, and all of us should be ready for that, which is good news for the Kings, because number one, they might be able to pick somebody up at the trade deadline, which makes them even better. And number two, you could see less competition in the Western Conference for those final 1 or 2 play-in spots. Central Valley King, I see your message about YouTube TV. Couldn't watch the game. Can someone tell me why I couldn't? Well, it's because NBC Sports California decided to not carry the game tonight. So what the Kings did was, I thought it was actually smart. The Kings, they had a streaming version of the game, and that's how I watched it. I had the HDMI cord. I plugged it in from, my wife Kelly's computer right into my TV, and that's how I watched it. But you don't have to, you don't have to worry about that moving forward, because the regular season is going to, is going to be here on Wednesday night, and you will not have to stream the regular season games. So that was a decision by the Kings, not by NBC Sports California, to not carry 3 of the 4 preseason games, and that's what they had to do. So the other night, we were fortunate enough that the first preseason game was on NBA TV, so we were able to see that one. And the second preseason game, NBC Sports California did carry that one out. So all right, I'm going to be wrapping up things here. It's 10:15 on a Friday night. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. Again, you can check out this live chat that we're going to have after every single Kings game. The Kings recap will be right here, youtube.com/Sactown Sports 1140. After every single game this season, about 5 minutes after the game, boom, there it is. We'll be here. Carl Michael Dave will be joining you guys on Wednesday night after the game. And I also want to remind every single one of you that are watching this right now, I appreciate and I love every single one of you keeping me company on a Friday night. I'm going to go have a little bit of a beverage and chill out a little bit for the rest of my Friday night. But tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., Chris Watkins will be debuting his new show. It's a Kings show. It's called Kings Weekly with Chris Watkins. That is on tomorrow at 11 a.m. until noon tomorrow. We will have Kings Weekly with Chris Watkins, the debut episode of this new show on Sactown Sports on Saturday mornings. Chris is going to be with you guys and gals every single Saturday morning. He's pumped. I'm pumped as the PD to get him this opportunity. He's been asking for it, pounding on the door, and he deserves it. So make sure you check in on that show tomorrow. Again, 11 a.m. until noon. Until then, everybody, thanks for joining the broadcast. I'm very happy that many of you came in tonight on a Friday night in the preseason. This shows the passion for Kings basketball from all you Kings fans, man. That's why it's a great place to be, because you guys rock. You guys love this team, and I think you're going to have some fun watching them this year. I'm going to go rest my voice. Everybody be good, be healthy, be safe. Enjoy your weekend. I'll be back on Monday with Rami at 3 o'clock. Again, Chris Watkins tomorrow at 11 a.m. And Wednesday night, we will have the opening. That's right, the opening night festivities with Carmichael Dave as the first host of a regular season game with this Sactown Sports Kings recap. We love you guys. Continue to support us. Thumbs up buttons, subscribe buttons so you can get notified every time we do one of these. It'll pop up on your phone. Continue to support us, and we will continue to do the very best that we can do to provide you guys with the very best content here in Sacramento. We love you. Go Kings, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night and a great weekend.